Hello, welcome. This is Margherita Crystal-Lotus, and here with me today is Mark Davenport. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Margarita. Pleased to be here.
Yes.
Very happy about that.
And in today's discussion, we're going to discuss the topic on what men needs to know about women's healing. Take it away, Mark.
Oh my goodness, what we men need to know about women's healing. Well, it just came to our attention just a couple days ago that women needed healing. So this is I'm speaking half in jest here, but from men's point of view, men have always wondered what's wrong with women. They're fine, and but that's another story. And I know that you have other things in mind today. When we speak of women's healing, we well, why can't you just go to the doctor like the rest of us when something's wrong? Well, what is it? Got a problem here, got something here, got a little problem in the intestines. What's this? Some kind of thing growing here in my neck. Well, go to the doctor, get it snipped out, take a pill. What do you mean by women's healing? That's how we men fix things.
I know, and maybe that's the core of the problem, that the communication between the sexes, that a man actually doesn't understand what women need, and women doesn't know what that men doesn't know. Does that make sense?
Women don't know what men don't know. Well, of course not, because we won't tell them. That's the way men are. So
yeah, there is like this perception, a female perception and a male perception. Do you think that's an angle we could start with?
Well, there are different ways we could go about, but when you talk about perception, I'm reminded, that women see the forests and men see the trees, because they're just going after one tree to cut it down, after one animal to hut it, to bring home for supper, etc. We're not concerned about the whole herd. We're not concerned about the environment. We're just focused on that target. And it seems to be a kind of different way that men think compared to women. So
yeah, and meanwhile, we have to manage the whole thing, all the million things that's going on, making the beds, making the supper, handling kids, and work too, and then all of those things is in this big circle that we all have to hold and balance, and then if a problem comes up, then if the woman doesn't know that men only do one thing at a time,
like stay. Yeah, the one thing that men do all day long is manage to stay alive somehow and get back home. It really concentrates the mind. It really does. Yeah. So how does?
Yeah. The main thing here, I think, is that what a man needs to know about a woman's healing is that she needs attention and she needs to be heard by her man. And if he doesn't give her time to talk with him about a particular problem, and the man says, yeah, how do we fix it? But it's not fixable, because it's not to be fixed. It's to be aware of and integrate. So the fixing doesn't relate.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm just taking a man's perspective just for the sake of argument here. I'm not really like this, but let's just fix this so we don't have to talk about it anymore. We'll move on to something interesting. Do something else. Just fix it. Be done with it. That's our approach to things, because all this talk about feelings, about what's going on inside, we don't consider that part of the process. That's just stuff that's kind of in the way of the important business of life. uh, watching television or whatever.
Yeah, whatever that could be. Yeah, and then when a man does that, it's cringing for a woman. She wants to be heard. She wants the man to, yes, I
Hmm.
hear you, and
Hmm.
she only wants to be
Indeed.
heard. That's the main thing in the first place. There's nothing for him to do other than hold the space for her, because she holds the
Hmm.
space for him all the time, and he's talking on when all the things that his ideas is. That's my
Hmm.
experience anyway.
Well, that's probably accurate. But men are not all that aware that women are holding space for them because that's just the normal way things should be. It's, of course, people listen when I talk. I'm the man. I've got things to say. Of course.
Very fast.
It doesn't feel like any. But when you grow up years and years ago, you don't question these things. It's just the way things are. You see your father acting that way. You see all the men and women in public life where the woman is deferring to the man, standing by his side, supporting him. But it's the man who does the talking, who interacts and makes things happen out there.
Mhm.
So we have a lot to learn, and that's partly why I'm here, because one of the things that I don't know about, or no, it's not that I don't know about them, it's that I never paid much attention to it. This whole business of energy healing, for example, coming out of a scientific background, uh, I studied a lot of biology in high school, and I've always been interested in physics and chemistry. Um, I assumed, dead things were dead, and they just laid there, and you could manipulate them, move them around, and so forth. But any idea of these dead things having energy, you know, that could actually affect us. This is something, relatively new in my life. So I'm just going to play dumb here for a while and let you explain how you came to understand uh, the magic of crystals, all of the energy healing that you've gotten into over the years. How did you get into that?
Well, it was it. I mean, I think it came from my mother. I'm gonna blame her here. She instilled. I mean, I'm oldest of five, right? And she
Hmm.
was showing us how to look at nature and being in the forest and see the plants and do art and creativity. And so I was extremely blessed to have that from my mother. And my father was also, he was a doctor, but he also was an artist and drew things and did
Oh.
watercolors and anything like that. So it was very creative environment where I grew up. So that naturally, then if you connect with your energy when you're quite young, then you really never lose it. But the problem was when I started to being a wife and a girlfriend or something like that, I met a totally different world because they didn't know really what I was talking about, and they didn't really understand that part and about energy. So
Hmm.
then it's like, wow, I didn't know what to do because I felt so in tune with nature most of the time, and I couldn't understand why these men couldn't understand what I'm talking about. So at first, of course, it went into crashes and arguments, and I'm right and you're wrong, right?
Hmm.
And so as a result of those relationship things that I went through, and thank you, I'm going to thank all my partners for helping me with this, propelled me to seek some kind of form of how can I solve this? A little bit in
Uh-huh.
the male way, directed. So then I came upon crystals, and I love stones. And this was about 22 years ago when I came to Canada that my interest in crystals
Hmm.
started to take root. So then I went to a jam show with a friend of mine, and wow, I could feel these energies with this, but I didn't have a framework in my mind for it. So I read a couple of books, few books, and then eventually I went to study with my teacher in Hawaii. And then, of course, the whole world of healing just cracked open, you know? Like when you actually open the shell, holy cow, everything comes out. So that was kind of transformational. So it can do that when you really want to open. But one can do it in small steps too, I think.
So you sort of gave up to the men in the earlier part of your life, in as much as they pushed you to seek another way to resolve these questions somehow. Not that they were any help in doing it themselves necessarily, but you wanted to put these things together. And do you now find yourself able to speak to men about these things, or is it still a difficulty?
Like, this is very amazing because I also do meet different people, even women too, who are like very directed like myself, so lives in their masculine side. So I've learned also about my own masculine side, you know, go get it done, fix it, and everything like that. So I had to explore my inner feminine first, and it's a continuing journey to actually know that I have a feminine side. And I think we lost some video here. Can you hear me? Yeah, there we are back. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay. So
yeah, it's fine on my end. Yep.
So when I started to explore my feminine side, I had a framework in my mind for, there is a difference, and I can use what I'm born with to communicate with in a better way. And I mean, men is still a mystery to me, because, you know, but if they can recognize that they're dealing with something that's not the same as them, and that they think and feel differently, if just that little key words, that we think differently and we feel differently.
I can relate to that, and I could also say put the shoe on the other foot, so to speak, because I'm learning about myself too. I'm learning about my masculine side now that I've created with Heidi a relationship where we both feel very, very safe about exposing ourselves, so that actually I'm exposing myself to me in a new way, just like you investigated your masculine side too, and you found all kinds of new things going on there. And it's very exciting to do that kind of inner discovery work and say, oh, this makes sense. I never understood that before. I've never even noticed that before. Of this whole world that comes out and you can be aware of and be sensitive to. And that's what I was thinking about in part when I was asking about these inanimate dead stones, that they're not just inanimate dead stones. These crystals are a kind of proto-life, I've heard it described as, you know. They have properties. They're almost, in a sense, what we in our normal consciousness would say, they're almost alive themselves. And so it's really it's just exciting to think of this world getting so huge, you know, so much more going on out there than we poor men have ever realized before. And you know, we call some of these things, old wives' stories, or it's folklore, and the scientific age that started about 1600 has just ignored all of that half of life. That's not what we measure. We only do things that we can measure. We can see them under a microscope or through a telescope, or we can manipulate them and make them hop around and change states and so forth. But if we don't have the instruments to do it, they don't exist. If we can't see them, they don't exist. That's the rule until quite recently, I think. And I'm wondering if you have noticed any tendency out there in the mainstream for science to begin to open these doors a little bit, to dare to look into some things that were absolutely taboo just a few years ago.
Okay.
Are you aware of any of these movements?
Well, yeah, like energy is mainstream. I mean, the self-help business market is billions of dollars, and when you think about it, that is an indication to me that many people now want to learn about it. People want to learn about it. Women, in particular, want to learn about it, and they've done it. We had Reiki and affirmations and crystals, of course, like these guys here, and or like this here. We can use them as tools.
Wonderful. Yeah.
We can use them as tools to move energy in the body. And, if you have a garden hose in the garden and it's like kinked like that, and then you try to turn on the water, can you water the lawn from a man's point of view? Can you water the lawn?
Very well. No.
It doesn't work. It doesn't come
No,
any
with the
water.
kinked hose, it doesn't work.
Yeah, so
that's right.
So the tools and the therapies and all of these modalities, they're aimed in some form or another to open the inner channels so that the energy can come to the whole of the being, not just to the brain, but also to the feeling body and to the mental body and to our spiritual body. So we're much more than just dead matter, we are alive. And I think everything in the universe is alive in some way. I mean, a crystal, you could cut it, you could polish it, you could do all kinds of things with it, and it does some things. I mean, it's not alive as an animal is alive, but it depends on the definition of what you mean being alive. So it can transport energy. It grows, So yes, crystals is a huge market as well. So for sure, the energy side of science is very closely watched, and even you can take a picture. You can take a picture of a crystal, and you can actually photograph its aura. I have that in my ebook on my website. And the same thing that you could take the aura picture of a person. So there are scientific means to actually document energy. So if that answers your question. And for myself, I think that working with energy is the solution, because if you can handle your own energy and know how it works, then you can heal yourself much faster, whatever the problem is, Even if I had a problem with a partner and he wasn't understanding me or stuff like that. But it wasn't until I understood how I could change me that connection would be made, and so I can communicate that in a way that he wasn't going to be angry about it,
Yeah. So the change started with you before it could go anyplace else.
Definitely, definitely.
Sure. Yeah. I I'm very encouraged by what you're saying about it going mainstream because I hear other kinds of stories too. Uh, sometimes they're kind of they make me kind of chuckle because my goodness, they're just noticing this now. You know, I I read an article. No, I didn't read the article. I skimmed an article because it was too technical for me to understand. But they have discovered in the brain submicroscopic structures. And they're very excited about these. Neuroscientists are very excited about them because it seems to be that these microscopic structures are very important in the formation of consciousness itself. And of course, what consciousness is has always been a big problem between people talking about energy and people talking about matter. And so I had to chuckle when I saw that because, 5 years ago, people were looking for the God particle, and now they're looking for the consciousness particle, and just this crazy little steps that science, mainstream science, allows in very slowly. Areas of investigation that were taboo in the past are now being accepted in some quarters, but there's such a leaden weight of established science and research that is just devoted to finding the kind of answers they know they can look for rather than looking for what's really out there. I think that things like
they have found, in the fascia, between the muscles and the soft tissue, there is something called hyaluronic acid, which is layers of very watery tissue. It's not muscles, it's not bone, it's the thing in between. And the funny thing is that in those layers that surrounds the nerves, for example, it's not the actual nerve, but around it, that's where the energy flows. And, acupuncturists and very, very ancient technologies knows about the energy points on the bodies and stuff like that, and that becomes also very much mainstream in the Eastern or in the Western world right now, and many therapists are actually practicing that, acupuncture or Chinese medicine or tapping, for example, that also builds on the energy in the body.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'll be happy when I see these cancer palaces transformed. Where they just do more and more research, trying to get the right kind of radiation, the right kind of chemical treatments, and it just doesn't work. There's got to be other ways that we can approach cancer than these. Well, the only way that insurance will pay for it, shall we say.
But if the feminine can be heard, if that's the main thing, I think I want a man to know, or the male society to know, that if they can understand that energy is part of life, and energy and feelings are part of life, and you know what? It's our emotion, the stuck emotion in the body, that actually creates a lot of illnesses and physical problems. They try to fix that by irradiating the part of the body. Yeah, you could do that, but why not address this problem really earlier? And when the energy flows in the body, and especially in relationship, it starts with the man and the woman, like when they first get together and then they have children, and if they can teach their children and themselves to to actually listen to each other. And the woman is naturally, in most cases, sort of emotional, and the man is naturally directed to the intellect. I mean, there is no, there is exceptions, of course, but we need both parts. We need our energy. If we don't have the energy flowing, and with energy I mean both emotional energy and mental energy and spiritual energy.
Yeah.
And then the energy that goes in the body as an elemental energy that runs the body. There's many kinds of energies. But one part of this is to understand that when a woman seems to be difficult or emotional or in reaction of some kind, so I think that men should really pay attention to that and don't take it too personally. Don't take
I've heard that before.
Yeah, and when they actually can see, yes, my partner, my wife, my girlfriend, there's something going on here. Maybe I don't understand it, but I'm going to listen to it and see what's happening, instead of that they also get into the emotional. Then it doesn't work really well.
Yeah. Emotional men, that can get really messy.
Well,
Not that they...
women tend to be depressed, right, and sad, and just explodes, and then it's finished, right? That's generalization. I mean, I've experienced that, and
sure.
So one way how a man can respond to a woman who he feels maybe difficult or emotional or not logical. I mean, not logical. That's the sign that he should actually pay attention, because he can learn something there. Because if he wants to have a relationship, he also needs to look at his feeling and his energy. And like we talked in the last episode about men's healing, men have also equally much things to heal as a woman. I don't think that women are all enlightenment, No. We both sexes has to do this healing journey. But if you can do it as a partnership and understand, this is not directly personal to me, it's something that we need to solve together, then that will be much better.
Yeah. That's a theme from our last talk together. It's not personal. It really isn't. This is where we come from. This is what we have learned. This is how history has propelled us, over the centuries to the point where we are right now. But now with awareness, we can really look at who we are, why we're like that, and what we can do about it, what we can learn from each other. We don't have to just assume a position and that's the way it is. And for most of human history, there weren't many choices about what positions you could assume. They really were they were fixed. They were predetermined.
So we come in with that, and then we have those ideas how it's supposed to be, and then when it's not like that, then we get upset, right? So we have to.
What are the alternatives?
We have to work with the circumstances and flow with the punches, sort of.
Yes, we do.
What is the question that a man could ask about women's healing? What would you think?
Well, the mystery for a man does reside in that emotional life that he's not necessarily privy to, or that he may not even identify with in himself. And so the thing the man needs to know, understand, ask about is when things are not critical, when you can just have a conversation in a relatively neutral place about something that isn't terribly important, to ask what is going on and really listen to what is going on, and not have any specific goal in mind, just a curious investigation about this creature who is sort of like me, definitely human, but in some ways foreign and but interesting. My goodness, we can take. It's really it's almost a transformation of the kind of basic sexual attraction into something that incorporates more than just the genitals. That kind of interest in each other.
Yeah,
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 just
yeah.
wow, my goodness, who is this? How interesting. What is this about? Tell me more. Teach me. I want to know. Yes, that's a wonderful, wonderful, productive approach. And if the woman feels really safe and trusting, she can open up then. She really
I
can.
think you're
And
right.
I've seen it. Hmm.
I think
Yeah.
you're right because when you feel safe and then you can talk about things without them being interpreted in all kinds of ways, then it's
Hmm.
more easier. And
Hmm.
I'm very excited, Mark, that you as a coach and teacher and trainer of this can share that with other men who is watching this, perhaps.
Yeah. I sure hope they are. Men really need to hear these things, as women need to hear the same things too. That men can change. That it's not just you're not just hammering at this big hairy chest that doesn't move. you know. Yeah.
But think about in history, the energy awareness have been there all along for millions of years. I mean, if you look at
Hmm.
animals, they follow energies like they're tracking to hunt
Hmm.
or they're watching for where the food is. They just tune in with the energies and then they follow that track, right? And
Hmm.
whereas humans in this day and age maybe have been somewhat remote to those actually animal instincts that are good for us. And
Yeah.
then the awareness moves up into this brain here and getting disconnected, like there's a disconnect here, so we're heads walking around without
Hmm.
connection to our body, right? And
Hmm.
women have known this over the ages. And guess what?
Sure.
They have also been incredibly punished for it.
Absolutely.
Magic or being burned at
Um,
the stake. That's a fear that sits in women who has experienced that in a lot of past lifetimes, let's say.
hmm
So the women also have a huge barrier to actually expose themselves and really relax. So that's another thing
hmm
that maybe men doesn't know about. So she needs to be feeling safe and being able to open herself without, okay, what's going to be do? How we going to fix it? Instead of actually allow a process and that
Yes.
he can enjoy and take advantage of that because it opens the inner rooms much more that you can live
Hmm.
inside, right?
Yeah, that would be a wonderful way to be. And I can say, that women in such a situation, they would be creating a container for the man where he didn't feel he had to fix something, for example, where he could let go of his traditional role and feel also safe in exposing himself without ridicule, because historically women have expected men to be a certain way, to be strong, to be providers, to go out there and fight the battles and do all the heavy lifting, so to speak. And men got good at that, but at the expense of that softer side, that emotional side. So help create a container where men don't have to be the way they always were expected to be in the past. And we can talk. Yeah.
And that's
Really.
what we're doing now. Okay,
Yeah. And
so
I was having to think, One thing I must say is, but we are talking to heads. You and I are talking to each other's heads, you know?
Yeah.
And and this is a technology that brains have created, you know, and it's reflected. And by and large, for better or for worse, these were men's brains who created all of this technology. And we have to remember those kind of gifts too. I mean, look around your house at all the systems, all the synthetic fabrics that are there, you know, all the treatments, all these finishes on all our furnitures, you know, the electrical systems and the plumbing systems. So these are all men's brains have done that, you know. So
And you forget Madame Curie, I'm sure. Forgot the
oh,
name.
I know, Madame Curie. Well, Pierre got the credit, but she did the work. That's true. There's certainly been many, many instances where that's true. It sure is. Well,
What's your
I'm just
takeaway
so
here?
happy.
What's your takeaway from this discussion, Mark?
My takeaway is that things are opening up for both men and women, and we can begin to relate to one another in ways that in the history of humankind, I will say, you know, have not been possible before. And that involves, you know, allowing crystals and other kinds of energy healing into these heads, you know, who are thinking in terms of equations and amounts and measuring and manipulating. And we don't have to be restricted to that. Men can be freed and women can be freed, both. Wonderful.
Great.
Yeah.
And I wanted to show this amethyst because I use amethyst for allowing change. So if you work with a crystal and want to change something in you, work with amethyst. Anyway, I'm very excited.
What if I don't want to change?
Well, you know what?
You got a stone for that.
Don't want to change, you're going to have more challenges.
Yeah, that's for sure. I was making a joke, of course, but I do want to change, and I see the necessity of change, and I have profited from change greatly. So I'm sorry I sort of cut you off in mid-sentence there as you were talking about.
Well, that is sort of a masculine authority thing, maybe. I don't know. I mean, women can interrupt too. Well, I have done that too. Well, so to complete this discussion today, I think we've covered a lot of ground, and we talked about the energy of that needs to be acknowledged, and energy is also emotions and mental flows and all of these things that include in the energy body. And if we cannot take everything personal, we're going to succeed much better in the communication between men and women. And if a man can understand that the woman also sometimes needs a safe container to be in, to actually do her healing and support her, rather than taking things personal when she may react in some ways, that develops a more healthier relations between the sexes for sure, and it also helps the man to do his healing.
Yes, we can help each other. We really can. And this is the right time in history to really take advantage of that. It is. Okay. Well, this has been great, Margherita. I'm so happy to have had this chance to talk with you today. And you're a good listener, too. You know
well,
that?
thank you. I haven't been accused of that, you know.
Okay. Well, I hope I was managed to listen too. Okay. All right.
So
Till the next time.
Next time we're going to talk about a different topic, so stay tuned to this channel. And thank you for watching, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Margherita. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.